Hey, everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, remember when going to a hotel, all you really expected was just a bed, a TV, maybe if you were lucky, had free HBO,
right?
And it was like on the marquee outside as if that was a big deal.
Maybe have free HBO.
Yeah, maybe a continental breakfast, which was maybe like some muffins or fruit or something.
That came to be expected, sure.
Or what about going to a sporting event and you just... you sat in your seat, you got some peanuts from a vendor that was wandering up and down the aisles. That was about it. You watched the game.
Yeah.
Expectations have changed a little bit, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Not quite the same anymore.
I mean, you can still go those, low value kind of things, but people like to have more of an experience when they do an event, when they go to a hotel, when they're in a restaurant, right?
Yep. Peanuts ain't going to do it anymore.
They are not. I still like a good peanut at a ball game.
Don't get me wrong. Yes.
But I want to be able to order it on my phone and go pick it up from a locker, a mobile locker, and not have to speak to anybody.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Well, today we're talking about the future of hospitality, some of which is already here.
Yep.
But we're going to do a little prognosticating, if you will, and look forward into the future.
Yeah.
We have a couple guests with us. We have Josh Stanphill and David Vander Dussen from Epson to talk about this subject.
Good guys.
We're going to talk about, what's obviously it's been a tough year in the industry. We're going to talk a little bit about what to expect maybe over this next 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get into the future and start talking about, hey, what are things that we and they expect to see over the next decade or so in the world of hospitality?
If we could venture that far, right?
If we could,
yes.
If we could venture that far. And then we'll get into some other topics too, like recreational hospitality, sporting events, concerts, all that kind of fun stuff that we're all looking forward to getting
We
back
all
to
know
en
it's
masse.
changing, so it's like what's going to stick, what's not going to stick.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
Ideally, we're giving you some stuff to take away to your customers to help plan your business for the future and help them get ready for the future.
100%.
As well. All right. All that plus our usual value to the VAR and what's tech connecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today, first up, Josh Stanphill. You might remember Josh.
He's back.
He was with us last year. It's been over a year now, I think, that he was on the show. Came over to talk about, was it mobile ordering? Ordering software, online and mobile ordering software. Josh, welcome back. He's an ISV BDM for Epson. Tell us a little bit about yourself for anybody that might not remember, and what have you been up to over the last year? Probably same as the rest of us.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to join. I manage the software partners with Epson. I've been with Epson for about 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was with a couple point of sale startups within the space, mainly focused around retail. And, my time over the last year, it's been a lot of outdoor activities and, a lot of time to spend with my family. And so hiking, and I actually just finished about a 100-mile hike on the John Muir Trail about a week ago.
Wow.
So, yeah, a little bit of challenge, but lots of beauty.
If there's a way to do the pandemic right, I think Josh has.
There you go.
He's bettered himself. He's gotten out in nature,
more in tune with the family. Yes, and a 100-mile hike to boot.
Yeah, no doubt. Wow, that's awesome.
Suddenly, I have not been doing anything.
I've caught up on some TV shows.
Yeah.
Our other guest today, David Vander Dussen, is a product manager for Epson. David, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to Epson, and maybe we'll follow up on Josh and see if you can shame us a little bit more on what you've been up to over the last year.
I don't know if I can top Josh's experience over the last year, but first, thanks for the invite. Excited to be here to join you guys for this. Like you mentioned, I'm a product manager at Epson in our point of sale group, managing most of the core products. So our receipt printers, our multifunction that can also do checks, and our label printers, which have seen a lot of change over the last year. And it's been an exciting thing or a product group to be a part of. No 100-mile hikes for me during the pandemic. I stayed focused a little bit more internal, and actually just honed my cocktail game. So a lot of tinkering with the different flavors and a little bit less strenuous than some of Josh's activities, though.
There you go. That's a little more in line with what most of us are up to, I think.
I like that one a lot.
I think Josh was the exception to the rule there. So
is it an old fashioned, Dave? Is that what you've been working on, or what's specific, or lots of different cocktails?
Oh, lots of different ones, but it all starts with the old fashioned.
There you go. All right, fair enough.
The classics.
You got to master the basics before you get fancy.
I mean, they call it the old fashioned for a reason.
For a reason.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys both for being here. We want to get into this topic about the future of hospitality.
Yes.
And you know us. We love to talk a lot about what's going to happen next and think about what could be down the road. I mean, when we do our TEConnecting segments, it's always a lot of times about kind of future advancements that may be on the way.
Yeah.
So but first let's kind of talk about where we are now. So obviously it's been a difficult year and a half now. Let's say I think we're at a year and a half point now in the world of hospitality. A lot of different industries, but especially in hospitality. There's quite some time when people just weren't traveling much. Their events were closed down. Sporting venues were closed down for quite some time. Restaurants, were not having in-person business, and now we're getting back to some sense of normalcy. COVID's doing its best to ruin the fun still, but,
absolutely.
But we're trying to get back to where we were. So, where do you see things right now? What are the priorities for hospitality companies? You think at the moment and moving forward within the next 6 months to a year or so? David, I'll let you start.
You kind of mentioned COVID trying to crash the party again right now. And I think still one of those top priorities in the hospitality industry is that confirmation of safety for the customers, the guests, and the employees. So still putting those systems in place with an eye toward the emphasis on how those concerns and the continued environment that we've been in for the past over a year now with the pandemic are still being addressed, still being thoughtfully worked through. But I think right now, as we've had an extended period in the pandemic, and we're now in another variant of COVID, there's also a shift toward continuing to address those needs and concerns, but doing it in a way that also allows the companies and the locations to start to incorporate it into that customer experience that they built their reputations on, or something that can be a system that can be put in place now to address these, but then evolve as we come out of this and continue to drive value as we begin to join together and talk about how COVID impacted our lives in the past.
Josh, what about you? What do you think's going on and now and in the close future?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've all done a lot of online ordering, hospitality and retail focused, and we've seen a lot of companies adopt that from more like micro merchant type things to more larger conglomerates in the space, and I think everyone is sort of honing in and sharpening their swords in that space. That it's not about just turning that on. Does it tie into the kitchen? What type of notifications and messaging and loyalty and everything can you still provide your customers, granted that that's sort of a newer channel that at least majority of people have participated in now. So we've seen things like loyalty now being included on some of the online ordering platforms, which is a real good way to kind of bridge some of the gaps. You have all these revenue channels, whether it's in person and they're, walking in and purchasing and sitting down, or like takeout, curbside, online ordering. If you can't offer the same experience across the board, it can be a hindrance to some people, and the experience itself isn't quite as great. So I think a lot of what we're seeing now is things getting refined a little bit to where the experience of being able to walk in and do an order provides all the other benefits that you would typically get, doing an online order provides all or similar benefits as what you would get, walking on site and doing the orders. Promo codes, there's lots of kind of things that have always been there, but have not existed on some of these other channels of revenue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of a honing of the solutions that are out there. I think that's dead on, Josh. When you think about it, I mean, I've experienced it too, and myself, where maybe a restaurant didn't have the ability to do online ordering 6-8 months ago. They do now, or they dipped a toe, if you will, and they went with DoorDash or something like that, one of the major conglomerates. But now they're even pivoting away from that and doing online ordering. And by the way, they're really pretty good at it. Like there's a restaurant, Bibby Bop. I'll use them as an example. That you could DoorDash them, but now they have a really nice online ordering and they deliver.
Right,
so it's like they're kind of honing their whole business model around the new norm, and so
they're not sharing those profits with DoorDash anymore at that point. Then
bingo, 100%. And I think when you pivot over to the hotels, they're going to be doing the same as well. But as a society, I was reading up on one of the statistics. A recent Harris poll found that 74% of Americans would consider taking a workcation, instead of a vacation.
Right.
The point there, and then the article went even a little bit deeper into how folks are really looking to extend these vacations. So not the 1 week vacation, but if it's going to be a workcation, maybe it's 2 weeks down in the Caribbean type of a thing. So I think that, hotels and the technology that hotels offer and the overall experience that they offer is definitely going to change coming through this pandemic and out of this pandemic. And those are just a couple ones that I thought, you know what, that's pretty interesting, right? Because people are digital nomads now. You can work anywhere. It doesn't matter really if you're, for a lot of folks, if you're sitting on a beach, well, maybe the audio is going to be a little different if you try to get on a Zoom call and you got the, the trees and the waving in the background, but the point of the matter is, you can be a digital nomad. So that workcation, I think that's going to be a lot more prevalent.
So how do we get ourselves a workation?
I don't know.
Can we do the pod like by a pool somewhere?
We're going to be
Marco
down in
will have
Orlando.
to stay here. Our producer will have to stay here and do everything from here. But we will go on the road and do it poolside. I like what both of you kind of mentioned there too. And David, you really hit on it, I think, in your initial response, which is the idea that the stuff that the different venues and hospitality companies are doing, it's about meeting the moment. It's about figuring out, like, hey, what are we going to do right now to keep people safe, to keep ourselves afloat, to keep business moving along, but with an eye towards thinking of, like, look, this isn't just about the now. This is also about the future. Because a lot of these things that we're doing, as Josh mentioned, the online ordering, the mobile experience, the loyalty, it's not stuff you're just going to stop doing one day. You're not going to say, all right, COVID's over.
Yeah, really.
We're done
we don't
with
want
all
that
this.
anymore.
Right, we don't want to do this anymore. No, because customers have come to expect it. They love it. They enjoy it. And they will want that moving forward. You can't just flip a switch and turn that stuff off one day and get rid of something that everybody loved. So I guess that kind of is a nice segue then into us thinking, further ahead as we go down the road. And, post-pandemic, whenever that is, hopefully sooner than later. And as we're thinking about the future over the next decade or so of hospitality, I want both of you to kind of think about, and throw out one or two types of technologies, innovations that you see really making a huge impact in the world of hospitality. It can be in any space of it that, any corner of it that you feel like you want to talk about, and tell us, where there are potential opportunities for our VARs maybe to latch in on that. So Josh, I'll let you start this one off. What are a couple things you think are in the future of hospitality?
Well, I mean, we're finally in the world of contactless almost everything. A lot of, like BYOD type applications. And so, I think that there's a responsibility for us within the industry to continue to push, NFC type payments. There's a lot, on the VAR side and with some of the software companies out there. Media is really critical in this new digital format of everything, for hospitality, and restaurants. Your menu items have to look beautiful. You have to be able to update them, pull them off the menu if certain products are no longer available. And then, there's a lot of cross-selling and upselling and things like that is really happening in this world. And I think that there's, a responsibility for, experts within the space to help boost revenue with some of these newer channels and to create better branding and, offer products that are being very progressive. And if, we've seen a lot of kiosks obviously pop up recently, and interestingly enough, there's companies like Home Depot that have kiosks, but they don't allow you to interact with them right now, at least on the self-service side. But yet at a grocery store, you can. And so, it's going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. But I think that is going to be a big part going forward. Is content is going to be king. Being able to cross-sell and upsell, having your history available in some of these transactions.
I like it.
Yeah,
David, what
stuff.
about you?
One of the interesting points about that is somewhat counterintuitively, as we see contactless experiences increase, it actually increases the number of contact points. And one of the things we've seen is the customers don't seem to be more forgiving over one form of experience versus another. They're not going to expect or accept an online ordering experience that was less enjoyable than ordering in person. They still have these similar expectations and high expectations across both of them. So I think the points Josh is bringing up here about content being key, the media having to be beautiful, the menus being updated, and providing those latest views. Being able to take in all of these contact points that are being introduced and look at the insights from all of them, connect them all together, and using all of that data to be able to quickly adjust to any learnings or informations or preferences that start to pop out in the interactions the customers are having. So being able to leverage all of these different ways that the customers now want to be interacted with or want to have these experiences, whether it's that kind of the traditional in-person interaction that we will see some return to, or the continued implementation of these contactless experiences, whether it's through kiosks or using your phone to check in or get in your door in a hotel. Being able to tie all of these systems together and then run the analysis, use the analytics or the processing on that to create one view of the customer's experience with the brand and which aspect they're choosing to interact with, where they might be really having their expectations exceeded or where there might be opportunities for improvement. The ability to turn all of this into one cohesive experience, no matter what channel that experience happens through, I think is going to be a really interesting trend that's going to, starting now, but really accelerate and deepen over the next several years.
I would agree with that. We've talked a little bit about that. And big data is such a big thing that you can get into. But we were just talking to Kaylin, from Fast Sensor about, you're absolutely right, David, in the sense that, data, the ability to manipulate it and pull out of it business intelligence that is then utilized, whether it's through the customer experience or bringing that holistic experience to play, is going to be critical. And that's why solution integrators really need to be in tune with that. Gone are the days where you're just able to install a point of sale system and walk away. You really have to be thinking a little bit more holistically about that whole thing. Content is king. We hear that all the time, that it comes back to content is king.
It's good news for me.
And content and context is king too. But that's, they're dead on in the sense that, that experience that you want, we've talked about, there's a premium if you're going to go into a place and have that experience, but you still want to have a good experience with a brand or whatever, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant, wherever you are. And so just that continuity, I think folks are getting a lot more savvy to that. And I can tell you, those that win at that game are going to win in the marketplace, right? Because that's what people want. I know this brand, and whether I'm online, whether I'm curbside, whether I'm going in, it's the same experience that I can come to enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you know me from enough time on the show that I love the self experience. Anytime that I can do something on my own without human interaction is great by me. But, to David's point, there are times when I will do something like that, and it's a harder and clunkier experience than just going to XYZ place or picking up the phone and calling somebody.
Yeah.
And that to me makes it even more frustrating. Like if you're telling me like I willfully chose to use your online experience, for instance, or your mobile experience to do something
Yep.
because I like to do that sort of thing and I want to just take control and do it myself. And now that experience is so problematic that I have to give you a call or visit you in person or find someone to talk to instead. You're right. That's a huge like deal breaker that will just piss somebody off and ruin that entire experience for them. Even if you get it right down the road eventually, that's potentially somebody that's like, no, I'm not coming back to this because you didn't roll it out of the gate properly.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a huge kind of factor to think about here and for our VARs thinking about working with their customers that want to implement some of these futuristic technologies and start moving into a different realm, that when you do it, you've got to do it right out of the gate. You've got to have the right partners. You've got to have the right software, the right hardware, whatever it is you need. And when you are ready to go and flip that switch and turn it on and give that experience to your customers, that it's working out of the gate. Because if it doesn't, you've set yourself back not only in not taking that step forward that you wanted to take, but also in losing the customers that came to you because they thought you were taking that step forward.
Oh, 100%. And one of the angles that we've talked about in the past there is maybe retooling some of the staff, right? Which people don't really think about, that okay, a lot of hospitality workers have been on the front lines of this pandemic. And let's be perfectly clear. And when companies pivot to other technologies to augment the experience, what we're seeing as a trend is, new roles that those staff members can take on in order to embrace that and make that experience, as you were just mentioning, a little bit more seamless when you do shift into, or when people are still interfacing with you, but now through online or now through curbside or now through a different way, a kiosk or something like that. So maybe having kind of that host that still would be able to help somebody with the kiosk. Things like that are definitely happening in the marketplace. Yeah.
Agreed.
So.
All right, guys. What are maybe one or two other ideas you can think of here of future technologies and innovations that are on your radar?
Well, one to kind of piggyback off some of what has just been spoken about is communication. In that, with a lot of this being digital now, it is sort of empowering businesses to be able to communicate statuses about your orders and updates. Also, I've been working with lots of companies in the stadium entertainment, that type of space that, David and I, a lot of what we do is really kind of point of sale centered, but because we also do projectors and all of that, they're really trying to create super unique experiences and, being able to order from your seat and from multiple vendors at one time and having it delivered, being able to pre-order things for your seats, going to stadiums. Like I saw something earlier about the Dodgers Stadium and that they're completely cashless. And they actually have machines in the stadium that convert cash to like a MasterCard debit card or something. And so, there's a little bit of that. And then there's one that kind of comes to mind that I think is really interesting, which is, we've been kind of building out a couple products for kitchens, mainly like display systems that, are really centered around efficiencies. And what we're seeing is that communication is something that needs to be expanded in a lot of these places in hospitality. One of the companies that I'm working with, they can just hit a button on a table, call a server. Server's wearing basically an Android smartwatch, and they can communicate directly with the customer that's sitting at the table. And so I think that's something that's super important about all of this. In the digital experience, you have that capability. In person, you don't. And so, the same type things should be carrying over to both sides of the fence. If I do an order, it's held up. I want text messages or push notifications or emails. I want to be up to date. If I'm in my seat at a stadium or at a concert, knowing that, oh, your food's going to arrive in 5 minutes, be on the lookout. I think that those are things that really greatly enhance the experience and allow you to really enjoy, what you're purchasing or what you're being entertained by.
Absolutely. And David, before you comment, I'll throw a layer on top of that, personalization. You are seeing the trend out there. Especially, so when I think about communications, of course, I react better when it says, "Hey, Dean, your food's ready in 5 minutes," rather than, "Hey, your food's ready in 5 minutes," or whatever it is. And I think,
hey, customer 22567,
right? Yeah. Especially if I've gone through the effort of like creating a profile in their world and stuff like that. I mean, I'm now expecting some kind of personalization.
And even though that's all automated too, that's okay. You feel that it feels different. It does.
I'm okay with leveraging technology so that it's a little bit more personalized to my whatever my tastes are, or what I've ordered in the past, or whatever. So, I mean, that is definitely a trend. But again, this all kind of interweaves to the data that you're pulling, and then the ability to extract that, do something with it, and then layer on top of that a little bit of personalization. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that some of the technology that Epson works and gets into that and stuff like that. But anyway, David, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What are some of your thoughts as well on maybe some other things that are out there?
I think you had a really important one there with the personalization. And Josh mentioned some of the stadium things that they see at Dodger Stadium. I'm actually a pretty massive soccer fan, and I'm a season ticket holder to the LA Galaxy. And they've also gone to a fully cashless system with those same systems where you can exchange cash for a card that can be used in the stadium. And it's all handled through their app. And I think one of the interesting points on that personalization is, I think there's opportunity, at least in from what I've seen in my experience, to use that and leverage it to show the additional value of what is offered in those stadiums. So, for example, unlike a baseball game where you have multiple breaks in between, we have pretty continuous action for two halves in soccer, with one halftime break where everyone splits to try to get their concessions or get their drinks, whatever it is they're doing. And as kind of a creature of habit that I am, I tend to be going to the same places each time. And when you start to attend multiple games, thankfully, I love my empanadas there. I've yet to get tired of them. I don't think I ever will. But there's the whole rest of the offerings across the stadium, which are not universal, right? And there may be an offering in a stand across the stadium that I'm not aware of. So I think that transition to the digital cashless tickets being handled through there, and being able to see how I'm interacting with that and find those aspects of the offerings, right? Because we've talked about the different experiences that the customers want to have and how they have those high expectations. But one thing we didn't necessarily talk about before is, how do they find them? And I think that's where some of this personalization can come in, tracking how those interactions are going, what they're returning to, and then what they may not know about, they being the customer in this case. And if there is something in the offering here, whether it's a hotel noticing that I've ordered the same type of food in multiple visits, and there's a local variant of that I might be interested in trying, or just that kind of acknowledgement and effort to look at, this is David. This isn't customer number or loyalty number, this person, that, like you guys mentioned, and take how I've been interacting with that brand, or the way that those things I've returned to, and either, not losing track of, I may just want to do that, but making those thoughtful offerings about, these are the other values we're bringing that you may not know about.
Yeah, those are very good points. Yeah.
One thing I was going to say, I've been thinking a lot about this, and yes, I do watch Netflix as well. But like Netflix, Hulu, DoorDash, Uber Eats, whoever it may be, Olo, all these, larger online ordering companies, none of them have allowed you to create favorites, really, and to take out certain types of places or food groups or any of that. And I think that maybe that's a part of the future of a lot of this is much more heavily personalized offers, or this is a restaurant that I don't want to purchase from. Stop putting it at the top of the list, or stop recommending it, and allow me to see what I really want to see, and similar things. And I think all of that is AI, machine learning type things that I'm sure that hopefully they're working on. They're certainly doing it with cross-selling and upselling on things that you currently are purchasing to make recommendations. Fortunately, you can't remove these recommendations and personalize that part yet.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that yet. Yeah. So a couple other things that kind of occurred to me, I wanted to jump in, and you guys can throw in some more detail on these if you've got them. But while I was thinking about this, one thing was, AI and analytics. And I know we've kind of touched on that a little bit here, obviously, with understanding customer trends, some tailored marketing to them, but, also pricing. We talk about this a lot in retail, but I think it works in hospitality too, especially in restaurants where maybe there's, dynamic pricing that can be set up based on what is happening in that day, based on if, customers are making a run on a certain type of food, but another food is getting left behind. Maybe you drop the price on that other food in order to entice people to buy that. So you're not, running out of stock of one and have overstock of the other at the end of the day. I could even see that maybe like in dynamic experiences, maybe even in like events and in stadiums and things like that, where in the future, maybe you know that most of your fans seem to be congregating on one side, and I don't know, you send out a push alert that says, hey, there's a deal over at this restaurant, which is over on the other side. We want to get people moving down that way and checking out some of these venues and shops instead. Because, let's be honest, when you go to like to a concert, especially if it's a nice venue, or especially sporting events these days, they're almost like little towns. Like I remember I went to a Cardinals game. I don't know, it's been like 3 or 4 years ago now, I guess. And they've built, and that stadium's not like super brand new, but, it's not really old either. But it's basically its own little town district around it. We've got it here in Cincinnati, too, to some extent around the ballpark now. That, it's a place where you want people to hang out, even when you're within the stadium. It's an experience to be in there.
Right.
There's cool restaurants with local foods. It's not just the standard hot dogs and peanuts and Cracker Jacks fare, I think that all just kind of blends together in this idea of just creating this experience wherever you go and whatever you're doing at that time. So
I would agree with that. I'm going to go back to your dynamic pricing for just a little bit, because I do think that that's a trend that's definitely out there. I mean, when you think about some of the other trends that are happening in the restaurant, obviously in hotels that serve food and things like that. I mean, there's a whole desire around sustainability or being a little bit more eco-friendly, because like food waste and food spoilage is huge. And I remember working on a project in a previous life of mine before BlueStar, working on a project that integrated point of sale data with when people opened up, a package of whatever. And once you open it, you got to sell it. You either sell it or you throw it out, kind of a thing. And so we were working on dynamic pricing models, and this is like a decade ago. And I know we were cutting edge and a little bleeding edge at that point in time, but today that doesn't seem so unrealistic to do some dynamic pricing around that. Josh, did you have a comment on dynamic pricing? Yeah.
Well, I just think that it seems like a spectacular idea, within the hospitality space. I mean, you made a lot of really good points around it. To be able to, the issue is what technology controls that pricing, and are they all connected in a way that it can systematically flow from one product to another? If you support multiple online ordering type platforms, or mobile ordering, or ordering through your website, they're typically, it would be the point of sale that really would be managing that. And I'm not so sure that all the technologies beyond that have that capability yet, but that seems like a phenomenal way to really do business and to look at it, unless all your customers are deciding to order at 9 p.m. at night to get the best deals on everything.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, back to my use case.
Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. Yeah,
we were integrating the point of sale into the digital signage, the menu boards, and so we were triggering certain messages, to help out. If again, if they if they cut open a cheesecake or something like that, or I forget what the specific use case was, but we would trigger those types of things. Or we had dynamic pricing around the temperature of the day. I mean, if it was really hot outside, then the icy or the ice drinks were, priced a little bit differently. So anyway, yeah, that kind of stuff is
that's a good point too. Like maybe, I don't know, because you could have different pricing in person versus, online or mobile ordering too. Let's say like you have expectations. You normally get a certain flow of mobile orders at a certain time. Maybe it's a little less that day, but you're seeing a few more customers than usual coming into the store. So maybe you adjust your pricing for that, either to get a little more revenue out of them while they're there, or, to get them to buy a little bit more. So I think there's definitely a way you could play around with that. Now, hopefully we as the consumer don't start getting super savvy about that and get frustrated about it. Hey, I bought this online and I just came past your store and saw it's $5 cheaper now, in store. What are you doing to me? So
I was imagining a slightly worse scenario going back. I'm sorry, Josh. Going back to your stadium where, hey, the hot dogs in stand A are now 50%. So a whole rush of people goes over there. And then, the next communication.
Well, maybe you're selective about it. Maybe you only ping like a certain number of people or something. I don't know.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the differences between like retail and hospitality is that retail is really good about inventory. Because they're selling and you can see how many units are available on a lot of e-commerce sites. When you go into the world of hospitality, I mean, I'd venture to say 80% of entities do not enter inventory into their point of sale, and therefore they have no knowledge of that.
Yeah.
And so, that's where, there's things kind of around the operations within kitchens that we hope can start to trigger some of that. Like, oh, we're out of this ingredient. Let's be able to, from the kitchen, put that item on pause from online ordering or, from the point of sale and tie it into it. So,
yeah,
really good point.
Super
really
important.
Good point. Yeah.
So one last thing that I'll add here, I had cybersecurity on here. We don't need to dive too far into that, but obviously, it's more and more of a concern than usual, especially, again, if you're going to be asking all your customers to show up somewhere and be tied into everything, you want to make sure all that's secure so that their data is secure and their, their programs are secure, their profiles, et cetera. But another one is this idea, I think I came across this during my research, of replicating home experiences while you're traveling. So this is especially like for hotels and resorts. And again, most of us might think like, well, I want a different experience at home when I'm traveling, right? But there's still some comforts at home that you might expect. So, for instance, voice technology. I read about some hotels that are experimenting with putting like Alexa type devices in hotel rooms that you can talk to and, hey, turn the thermostat up, turn the television on, start the coffee maker for me, book a reservation in the restaurant for me at 6:00.
Yeah.
Things like, I'll give you an example. When I traveled to Destin a couple months ago on vacation with my wife and her family, the condo we stayed in, even though someone owns this condo, it's not part of a professional chain or anything, but they had TVs in the house that had access to all the major streaming services, and you could access them all through guest accounts. So when my son's yelling at me saying, I want to watch Muppet Babies, because that's what he would do back home, I could log into my Disney Plus account as a guest on their television, and it like times that after a while, so it's not like it stays logged in, or I can log back out on my own if I wanted to, and he could watch what he wanted to watch there, the same as he would if he were back home.
Yeah, really good point.
And I think that's the kind of stuff where where people want some of the same things they get at home. They want obviously the grand experience of wherever they're staying, and hopefully there's a lot more better perks than what you get at home. But there's some stuff that we expect at home that we want to find when we're actually out on the road too.
Dude,
if it's suddenly missing, we're like, where's that?
I totally see that happening. And when you look at the trends again, and the other word that I'll throw out here is bleisure is the new word. It's the business leisure, or the workcation.
Right.
But bleisure is a term that professional business people who are kind of mixing leisure with pleasure.
Right.
So to your point, you kind of want some of those home amenities. Look, if I'm going to be on the road for 2 weeks doing a little bit of leisure, a little bit of business, let's have some of my home life mixed in it, because I'm probably bringing a kid with me or a significant other with me, and we need, it would be better to have that experience where it's a little bit more seamless. Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, let's wrap up here with, and we've kind of talked a little bit about recreational type, hospitality, sporting events, entertainment attractions. David, I'll start with you on this one. Is there anything else around that part of things? If we get away from the hotel and restaurant experience of hospitality, anything else in the world of hospitality from a recreational standpoint that you think is going to change or evolve that you're looking forward to?
kind of linking back almost to that dynamic pricing conversation, especially as we look at recreational hospitality, and because it's an area of passion of mine, I tend to gravitate toward those sporting events. But I think the continued personalization around that experience, from moving toward the digital first model, whether it's ticketing, food ordering, the notifications. And I think one of the interesting areas to watch develop there is the how do you control and how do you select the channel that you're offering these new digital experiences in? And what is the infrastructure behind that you need to be able to tie into? I know in some stadiums they've put up their own supplemental cell towers where they've built their own wireless networks in there because they need to be able to support that connection, or they can't get to their customers to utilize and leverage any of these new capabilities they've put into place. So I think as you look at the infrastructure there and how that will feed into the personalization, one of the, it's taking a step back, and it's interesting because it loops back into a lot of the topics we've already discussed in today, and the different channels they may want to interact with, the data, the base of data to run the analytics or the business intelligence on, and then the infrastructure to create that. But not all, and this is one thing I've appreciated, not all of the concession offerings, for example, in a stadium anymore are kind of your standard hot dog, burger, popcorn, same thing throughout the entire stadium. There's all of those either local flavor, personalized, different vendors coming in. So I think and I kind of touched on before, but how the stadiums in particular, when they have such large crowds and they have such distributed amenities that guests may not be aware of, how they put that infrastructure base in place, and then curate and select the communication that's going out to them to both increase that experience, but also it gives you an opportunity to maximize the revenue or the opportunities for the brands that are in the stadium.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. As you were talking, David, I was thinking to myself, one technology that I'm thinking of that I know is starting to creep into sports and stadiums is AR. I was just imagining myself sitting down at Great American Ballpark, and you're on one side of the stadium. I have no idea what concessions are over on the other side of the stadium. Right. Wouldn't it be cool if I whipped up my phone, had a little augmented reality, and I could see, little blips would come up and say, "Oh, Nathan's hot dogs are over here," or La Rosa's pizza is right here, type of a thing. But in all seriousness, augmented reality is definitely one of those technologies that I think you're going to see a little bit more in stadiums and stuff like that. Yeah, Josh, I'm sorry I stepped on you right there.
No worries.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. Augmented reality is a little bit in our world as well. We do a lot of that for like remote support, drones. There's some interesting things. Now, what I was going to say, and I don't know if it's actually been brought up today, a lot of these technologies come from a very simple technology called the QR code. And it's taken a really long time for the US to understand how to use a QR code. I think it stores like 2,048 characters or something like that. And that's how a lot of people are getting access to a lot of these features throughout products. So I think, in the entertainment or recreational hospitality world, we're going to see a lot more of that. Most of them, are fairly serialized in the fact that they know exactly where you're sitting. And then the other part that I was going to say is this has provided an opportunity because of the digital means of all of this for brands to get involved as well and to do promotions and to offset some costs by advertising in some of this or pushing you to buy another product versus a competitor's product. So sort of like what we see in the coupon world at a grocery store, being printed is very similar to what's happening in this world. And brands do want to get involved with a lot of this, and they can seriously offset the costs of implementing some of these programs.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, this has been a good conversation. I feel like we've talked a lot about the nice future of hospitality and some stuff down the road. I'm kind of excited about some of this stuff.
Yeah. Cool stuff's coming down the road.
I can't wait to see what's out there next. The next time we're traveling, going to a concert. Sport. I say concerts like I still go to concerts. The last time I went to a concert, which has been like 4 years ago,
I was going to ask.
My legs and feet just ached for days after.
Yeah, I haven't been to a concert longer than that.
I can't do it anymore.
No?
I wish I could. I love it.
Oh, you're getting old.
If I could sit down the whole time, sure, but
Okay, yeah, now you're going to like the Pops orchestra.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring your lawn chair.
Yeah, if I want to go
umbrella.
see someone who's exciting, like I want to be the one guy who's like sitting there where everybody's jumping around, like I'm just hanging out here.
So your days in the mosh pit are gone?
Very long.
Very
gone.
much so.
Yes,
okay.
Very much so. They were very short-lived to begin with. So, all right. Now, hey, before we move on to our recurring segments, I want to, as always, thank our sponsors here on the show, of which Epson is one. So thank you for your support and for lending us Josh and David today.
Yep.
Hey, obviously, as always, if you like the show, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button for this episode, subscribe to the channel so you can make sure you're not missing any of our episodes. If you listen on the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever, leave us any kind of rating and review that you can, especially on Apple. 5-star rating and review. Would love to hear from you and what you like about the show. And if you want to reach out to us, tell us what you like, don't like, have some ideas for future episodes, topics you want to hear about, you can find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, hey, let's wrap up first with the value to the VAR. This is where we try to take our conversation, put it in a nice package, put a bow on it, wrap it up.
Right? Yeah.
What does this mean to you? What can you take away from this conversation? So, Josh, I'll let you start this conversation. What should VARs be investing in or working on with their hospitality customers right now to future-proof and to get ready for these kinds of innovations that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the biggest ones are getting very familiar with some of the kiosk manufacturers and some of the software providers that are out there. A lot of them are looking for resellers, contactless payments, and then, making sure that the products that are being recommended really carry a lot of integration so that these systems can be connected. And then, back to being able to provide or allow these companies to have really rich media and content so that it can be distributed throughout their software stack or ecosystem.
David, what about you?
Yeah, no, as we look at that idea of future proofing, it's looking at the hardware, the systems, the plans that are putting in place. And I think an important thing to look at is how those facilitate not just the pulling information from the customer or the ability to push it to them, but how those products, those solutions, the modules or installations that are done kind of facilitate the two-way transfer of information, both from the customer to the hospitality vendor, from the vendor to the customer, and how they can, keep that information flowing and document it so that as we need to be flexible going forward, make little pivots or adjust to a changing preference, that infrastructure is already in place to roll out those next changes.
Really good advice, right?
I agree.
Josh, you were going to say, yeah.
Yeah, there was, one thing that I think hadn't really been touched about on this one, but kitchen display systems. I think that there are a lot of VARs that do participate in this world. This is sort of what I would consider a very critical component of supporting any of the things that we're talking about. And that, they should, if they're not very familiar with kitchen display, they should look and see what's out there, understand what it can do, what it can tie in, because this is the operational efficiencies. This is what reports, times. This is what talks about employee performance. This is what helps you with scheduling. There's so many things that are tied to it. And so that would be an area that in the VAR community that I would look heavily in, because a lot of restaurants and anyone that's in the hospitality space can be quickly overwhelmed by some of the revenue channels today. And this is sort of like what keeps, it really close to the vest as far as what your performance can be, what it is. And, it's something to certainly look into and to get very familiar with, because it is only growing in this space.
God, I love it. Yeah, we always talk about front of house, right? We're always talking about what's happening to the customer experience side. Well, stuff's happening in the back too. KDS systems and integrating the technology.
Your employees want all the cool new tech
dead
too.
on, Josh. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up here late in the conversation, because that's a really, really good point. Yeah. And of course, KDS systems can enable so many different things about the back of house, if you will. And yeah, you'd be a fool if you're not at least brushed up on some of that technology. And if you don't know a lot about it, to Josh's point, you should start digging.
I agree. Definitely agree. All right, hey, let's wrap up with our favorite segment, What's Tech Connecting with You? This is where we get to talk about something from the world of science, technology, innovation.
Anywhere.
Well, yeah, anything, anywhere that's happening in the world that's got our attention, that's got us reading or thinking about it. Josh, I'll let you start. What's Tech Connecting with You right now?
So one thing about me is that I'm very big into saltwater reef tanks. And so during COVID, I decided to set up a larger, much more complicated tank. And one thing that I found very interesting is I wanted to go all in on the tech, because I knew with the role that I have with Epson requires me to travel a bit, and I need to be able to control things, see things, test water temperatures, salinity, all these things. And so as I sort of designed the system, I probably added 8 Wi-Fi devices to my network in my home, specific to just my saltwater tank. And it was just kind of wild, because it allows you to do things with products that you really couldn't do before without like this added layer of software or an application, or remotely being able to connect to it and change it. So it's been spectacular. It's been disastrous. It's been all things. But at the end of the day, it's been a really fun thing to kind of get into and to see the technology in that space. And maybe someday I'll share what I've got going here. But I'd like to say that I have a little mini reef in my home, so I probably have like 100 corals now in there.
Wow,
that is all. See, Josh, once again showing us up
way up here,
like
just killing it. Yeah,
those are COVID goals that I've ever seen them right there. 1,000-mile hikes, building your own saltwater reef. I mean, wow.
Wait a minute. So your little goldfish tank that you got for Miles, and then the little pump, he's just taking it up.
That got flushed down the toilet months ago.
Quite a few notches. Now, Josh, is this all under Google Home, right? Is it all going under one app? Are there APIs that tie into Google, or what? Not yet.
Some of it can do like Alexa and Google Home and all of that. Okay. But what I really have is a folder on my iPhone that has all the Reef Tank apps on it. And I can program it to do things like when I'm away feeding and, testing certain parameters of the water, because in this hobby, what you really are is a water chemistry expert, not necessarily a fish expert or a coral expert. So if you need any water advice, I'm providing that all day long.
That's awesome.
A good one. That's a good one.
All right, David, what about you? What's Tech Connecting with you right now?
Recently, I've been furnishing a new space, and what I've found is I'm not particularly loyal to one brand or another when I'm looking for accessories, art, any of those types of things that go in there. So I've been looking at a variety of different brands, a variety of different options for all of those. And it got me kind of thinking about the logistics behind that delivery. And, there's the behemoths in the world, like an Amazon, who can get anything to you in 2 days. And I was seeing a lot more of those types of delivery schedules than I expected. Not from people selling through Amazon, not from these behemoths in the retail world. And so I was kind of looking into that and went down a bit of a rabbit hole on micro-fulfillment centers. And I just found it really interesting how they're using robotics and very dense storage in very small square footage areas, and in some cases repurposing some of the space in malls or buildings that are not being used as much as we continue to work from home and stay home more often. So how they were using this technology and these layouts to move the location of that distribution center closer to their population centers, bring in and offer as a service the ability to bring in and stock high priority products for a variety of their customers, and then deliver that to me and allow them to compete with some of these extremely large brands and operations, and still deliver that kind of very impressive experience over the last mile of delivery.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome.
That is going to start occurring and I don't know that one's popped up near me, but definitely hearing about that trend out there. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Dean, what's TEConnecting with you right now?
All right, so we've all been through this COVID thing. We continue to go through it. Do you feel like you need a break? Do you need a little time off?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to take
right now?
A whole year off? How about a whole year? Okay.
Do I get paid?
Well, so NASA's looking for some people, and this might actually help with your whole desire to go to Mars. So NASA is seeking participants to live in a fake Martian habitat for an entire year. So are you in? I don't know. Josh, David, are you in? Let me give you a little bit more insight. It's 1,700 square feet that you would have to share with 3 other people, and it was created by a 3D printer. So this whole habitat was created by a 3D printer. So are you in?
I want other people that are more adventurous than me to start this off. And just let me know when the luxury hotel has been built on Mars, and I'll come. Okay?
Well, they're putting the building in the Johnson Space Center in Houston. They're going to put this habitat there, and they're looking for 4 people to live in it for a year so that they can test whether or not you really can live on Mars for, I guess up to a year.
That's awesome. Like, I'm glad
it is awesome.
It really is. It truly is awesome, but it's probably not for me.
No.
Plus, you got to be, hopefully you're stuck with people you like and want to get along with.
Man, 1,700 square feet gets really small.
But to be fair, I suppose if you
quick.
are in any way someone who's involved in NASA, you've got to be comfortable with that kind of thing. Because if you're doing space flights, if you're going to a station, if you do be one of those first people that goes off to Mars or wherever to colonize, you got to be surrounded by people that you're pretty happy with.
Okay, well, if you're fed up and you feel like you got to get away from things for a little bit, I don't know. There you go. You can do the habitat. What's TEConnecting with you?
All right, so I think we talked about this a little bit offline at one point, but I wanted to share it on the show. So the Disney World recently announced the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser resort experience. They're building. So they've got the whole new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge park that's part of that's part of Disney World now, which is its own thing. But they said when they introduced that they were also going to build a hotel/resort experience that was built around Star Wars, and it's called the Galactic Starcruiser. And basically the idea is that you go in and you are living in the world of Star Wars for 2 days.
That's awesome.
Everyone you meet, all of the employees are all in character, dressed up, makeup.
Got it.
It's got, full service options, bar, restaurant. All the food is tailored as if it's alien type food or something you might get in the Star Wars universe. You get, a day pass to go to the Galaxy's Edge Park and play around in there for the day. The idea of doing this is you're not doing this to go explore the rest of Disney World. This is strictly an immersive Star Wars experience.
Got it. Yeah.
So you get to go play at the Galaxy's Edge Park.
Brilliant.
You get front of the line options to go to on one of the rides.
You've already got your tickets.
Well, let's talk about how much this costs.
Okay, yeah.
For 2 people for 2 days is about $5,000.
Yikes!
Yeah, and mind you, that is during non-peak times. The initial pricing they gave is for late August through mid-September next year when this is supposed to open up. So that's not even considered as peak times. For 4 people, 3 adults and a kid, it gets to about $6,000.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so the pricing...
Hey, they've done their research. They know that there's enough people out there willing to put down $5,000 for 2
nights. To be fair,
nights.
I came across a website that also pointed out that the most expensive Disney resort the Floridian, the Grand Floridian, is about $2,300 for 2 days for two people, and you don't get an all-inclusive experience. Like you get continental breakfast and some refreshments throughout the day. There's no park access included with that. There's no front-of-line privileges.
Princess Leia isn't delivering your breakfast.
Right. So to be fair, I guess all things considered, it's a deal maybe. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's a deal that I'm going to.
That's a once in a lifetime experience.
Well,
is what
plus
you would
there's
do,
the other
right?
part of it. I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this is something my son and I will do someday when he's much older, and hopefully he's into Star Wars, that he gets into it and isn't like, this is some stupid stuff that Dad likes. Because I know my wife would want nothing to do with this. The first time a Twi'lek came walking up to her and offer her a beverage, she'd be like, "No, I'm out. Sorry." A droid was rolling by her. She's like, "No, I'm going to go to this hotel down the way, hang out by the pool. You guys have fun for a couple days." So I don't
do your Star Wars
I don't
thing.
see this being something I could necessarily get her to buy into. Immersing in the world of Star Wars for a couple days. But yes, I would do it if I had the time and money for it. Sure.
I like it. Are you guys going? Are you doing this Star Wars immersive experience?
I'm hoping that we have a VAR-Tech there sometime soon.
Well played, Josh. Well played. Yeah.
I can
in
get
terms
behind
of
that.
space experiences, I might go 2 days in Star Wars rather than a year in Mars.
I concur.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I have a feeling that experience would be a little more fun and exciting than roughing it and pretending you're on Mars for a year. So.
Fair enough.
All right, that does it for us. Josh Stanphill, David Vander Dussen, thank you guys so much for joining us on the pod today. We appreciate your time. It is time for us, unfortunately, to unplug. Until next time, the Force will be with you if you have a lot of money.
There you go.
And please stay connected. Counter space is at a premium for most retailers and restaurants, even for the latest in compact printers. That's why Epson takes space saving a step further with the M32SL, a compact, sleek POS thermal receipt printer with a built-in table mount and convenient connectivity. Its modern industrial design gives users multiple configuration options and flexible positioning. Made to accommodate up to 4 POS peripheral devices via USB, this all-in-one POS printer can even charge a tablet and communicate data, all using a single USB cable. USB network tethering can even enable network connection to tablets and locations with spotty wireless. Of course, the modern POS should support modern customer trends, so the M32SL enables online ordering, server direct print, as well as cloud applications via OmniLink merchant services. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar Epson representative.